Hello everyone, the webinar will begin in a few minutes. We'll wait for a few more attendees to get on the line. Hello everyone, welcome to our annual Hitwise Holiday Planning webinar presented by Senior Research Analyst John Fetto. Today, John will be sharing the latest product trends, Amazon data, and key strategies to plan for the 2018 holiday season. My name is Lauren and I'll be the moderator today. And before I hand it over to John, I just have a few housekeeping items to cover. One is that we encourage attendees to submit questions. You can do that at any point during the webinar by clicking the questions box at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We will be answering those questions during the Q&A at the end of this webinar. This webinar will be recorded and a copy of the recording and the slides will be emailed to you either today or tomorrow. So now I'll hand it over to John to get the presentation started.
Thanks, Lauren, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We're going to jump right into some data. For any of those of you who attended our holiday recap webinar, there will be some repetition here, but I think it is important to, after several months of getting distance between the holiday season and being shell-shocked in January a little bit, to kind of go back and kind of calmly revisit some of these trends. So we're going to jump right in. Looking at visits to the Hitwise Retail 500 for the past few years, and the Hitwise Retail 500 is an aggregation of the top 500 retail sites that Hitwise maintains. Last year, Americans paid 14.1 billion visits to the Hitwise Retail 500 during the holiday season, and that includes the months of November and December. That was about a 21% increase over the 11.7 billion visits that Hitwise registered last season. That boils down to over 1.5 billion visits each week, with the weeks of Thanksgiving and week of Cyber Monday generating the greatest traffic levels of the season, 2 billion and 1.8 billion visits respectively. So that really confirmed our expectations that peak week visits last year would have surpassed 2 billion. And I think we're on path to surpass that again in 2018. If we're going to look at the top transaction, at the transaction trends for the 2017 season, we are looking at that here from the top 50 retailers that Hitwise is tracking the checkout pages on an ongoing basis. And it's important to know that these top 50 retailers account for about 75% of overall visits to the Hitwise Retail 500. So these 50 retailers in terms of transactions are really kind of telling us exactly what's going on in terms of when people are buying. Hitwise, we estimate that 71.7 million Americans, or about 32% of the pop, made a purchase from one of these top 50 retailers between Thanksgiving and the end of December last year. In fact, these 50 companies alone processed 412 million browser-based online transactions during the holiday season last year. And when I say browser-based transactions, it means that that doesn't include transactions that were made via mobile apps. So the chart here shows that the visits versus transactions for these top 50 sites. Oh, sorry, I just advanced a little bit too quickly there. As you can see, the week of Thanksgiving and Black Friday was really the peak for visits, but it was actually the second week for transactions, with 55.6 million online transactions processed that week, the week of peak week. And then the week ending December 16th was actually the top week for online transactions. And that was when the top 50 retailers processed 56.9, almost 57 million transactions. It's probably not a coincidence also that this is the week which covered free shipping day, which is on December 15th last year. With more and more transactions occurring online, retailers are kind of moving their guaranteed delivery dates by Christmas up a few days, putting extra pressure on shoppers to kind of get those orders in the weeks ending in that week of December 16th, so they can make sure that everything is delivered in time. For that peak purchase week or shopping week, while most retailers really did well that week, retailers like Macy's, LL Bean, Dick's, Cabela's, Sam's, Barnes & Noble, and even Fitbit, they had exceptionally strong sales that week, that last kind of peak buying week. Now, if we were going to look at the transactions and the visits trend day by day throughout the season, but before we do that, I want to just point out that in 2017 there were 33 shopping days between Thanksgiving and Christmas, including those 2 days alone. But in 2018, there are 34 days in the shopping season, so making it the longest holiday shopping season possible. As we look at this data that you see on your screen here, the top 3 days of the year, if I can put those rankers up there, the top 3 days for both visits and purchases were Black Friday, Thanksgiving, and Cyber Monday. But you can see that Cyber Monday was the top day for transactions, and Thanksgiving was the top for visits. So conversions were actually a little bit lower on Thanksgiving, which is something we've seen in the past, as people are still kind of a little bit more heavily focused on information gathering that day, as opposed to actually making purchases. We're also seeing that the bulk of the top transaction days, as we just kind of talked about before, are outside of peak weekend, falling towards the middle and towards the end of December. In fact, 2 of the top 10 buying days were less than a week before Christmas Eve. And just in terms of looking at the hour-by-hour trends, things that we've seen on Black Friday, obviously we're going to be seeing shopping starting Thanksgiving, like in the midnight hours, going from Thanksgiving into Black Friday, as people are kind of having that sense of urgency to see what's the first one to make those purchases of limited items. In contrast, on Cyber Monday, we really kind of see that as being more like a typical weekday shopping in terms of hour-by-hour behaviors. In fact, people are still doing most of their shopping on Cyber Monday after the 5 p.m. mark, maybe after they get home, have dinner, put the kids to bed, and then they go online and shop on Cyber Monday. So going all the way up to like midnight on Cyber Tuesday. If we're going to take that chart that we were just looking at week by week, but spreading it out longitudinally, you'll see, again, here are the top visits and transaction days during Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and Cyber Monday. But then in terms of visits, you see the visits actually slowly trend downward, whereas the transactions continue to go up, and we're seeing more and more transactions as kind of we head closer into the Christmas date. And if we take the relationship between those two, we can calculate the conversion rate. So we can see I'll put some labels up here for you. The conversion rates on Cyber Monday were actually the highest of the season. Black Friday and Thanksgiving were much lower. In fact, the second highest conversion rate of the season was on December 17th. And then immediately conversion rates start to drop as we get closer and closer to Christmas, with the lowest almost being on December 23rd. But then those rebound as we kind of go into Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. People start to buy a little, kind of go to buying gift card mode and returns and looking into kind of Christmas day after Christmas sales. If we want to also take a look at, how the share of transactions and the visits trend over the weeks getting closer and closer to Christmas, we're actually seeing a pretty steady increase during the weeks before Christmas, with the week of Thanksgiving accounting for the greatest share of visits, while the week ending December 17th accounting for the greatest share of transactions. That said, it's interesting to note that final week before Christmas still accounted for 12% of visits and 14% of transactions. So there's still a lot of opportunity in those last 7 days, or those last few days of the season, to get out there and get some more transactions in. And so if there's anything in this highly competitive market that will allow a brand to possibly extend its shipping allowance to get a piece of that final order volume, it would be worth considering, because there is still a lot of money on the table even in that final week of Christmas. Now we're going to look quickly into where traffic is coming from. Search is still by far the top driver of traffic to the top retail sites, driving just under 43% of referred visits to the Hitwise Retail 500. However, that's actually down a relative almost 6% year over year. A lot of this, to be honest, a lot of the fact that it's down is going to be due to the fact that Amazon is increasingly a retail search engine all by itself. In fact, Hitwise is showing almost, if not more, searches being conducted on Amazon than Yahoo or Bing, almost combined, not quite, but almost there. And we're actually capturing about 10.5 million unique search variations each month across dozens of categories. And Hitwise is going to be announcing some more kind of insights into our ability to see into Amazon search very soon. So if that's something of interest, be sure to stay tuned or speak to your Hitwise client team for more information on that. In terms of other trends that we saw year over year, social media sites were driving a little bit less traffic last year, 7% down, down 16% year over year. And email, which had been declining, has seen a rebound last year, driving 5.4% of visits, up about 5% from last December. And then finally, another trend that we kind of saw here was that the retail sites, other retail sites, are driving an increased share of visits to the Hitwise 500. So there's a lot of cross-comparison shopping happening, including probably a visit to Amazon as part of that shopping experience. Whether you buy there or you buy somewhere else, you're probably hitting Amazon at some point. So if we want to, on a related note, see who the top retailers were, it's no surprise that Amazon is number one. In November and December, over a third of all visits to the Hitwise Retail 500 were to Amazon.com. But all but one of the top 15 retailers that we're looking at here actually increased their number of visits year over year, with the exception of Newegg, which saw visits fall by 23%. Most of the top retailers here also increased their share of visits too, and that's really due to the fact that Amazon actually, we saw their share decline, and the other top retailers picked up that share. So even if Amazon lost share, it's interesting to point out that their total visits still increased by 350,000 year over year. To just put that in perspective, that 350,000 is actually more visits than Home Depot had overall during November and December. So it's kind of more visits than Home Depot grew in November and December, which is really astounding. It's also important to note that that loss in share for Amazon is likely due to the fact that they're pushing, they're getting more engagement through their mobile app, and people are moving at least partially from desktop and mobile browsers to that app, which is not included in these numbers here. If we want to look at the conversion rates of the top retailers, here we're looking at the conversion rates of those top 15 retailers that we were looking at on the previous slide, and you can clearly see that Amazon's not doing such a great job at getting a lot of visits. They're actually doing an exceptional job at converting those visits into transactions, with 7% of Amazon's visits converting in November, December last year, which is more than double the conversion rate of the nearest competitor of Kohl's. JCPenney, which still had a really strong performance in visits last year, was even posted some nice growth year over year, saw very, very low conversion rates of less than 1%. So if we look at all the top 50 retailers, not just those top by visits, we can see the conversion rates of those being Shutterfly and Amazon. So actually Shutterfly beat out Amazon when it comes to the best conversion rate, with about a 7.1% conversion rate. LL Bean also did really well with a 6% conversion rate, and strong performances were also seen by Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works, and Old Navy here. Now, if we take that and look at the top retailers by transaction share, knowing again how well Amazon's conversion rate is now, it shouldn't be a surprise in terms of transaction share. Their dominance was even greater. In fact, nearly 70% of the season's transactions among those processed by the top 50 retailers were processed by Amazon.com. We'll talk about this a little bit more in a few slides, but Hitwise, we found that 82% of Americans who bought something online bought from one of the 50 retailers, made at least one purchase on Amazon. And a lot of those people were buying exclusively on Amazon. So it's an important number to keep our eye on. The other retailers the only other retailers rather to even see transaction shares above 1% were Walmart, Target, Kohl's, Best Buy, and Home Depot. Everybody else, Shutterfly, Costco, Macy's, everybody else was less than 1% of transaction share. And obviously, one of the other reasons that Amazon's getting so many transactions is because they're signing up so many people into Prime, and Hitwise actually is able to see that every week and every month. We're able to see how many new signups people have. Amazon is registering for Prime. We show that since November last year, Amazon's signed up an additional 1.4 million new members, and they're actually 375,000 of those were in December last year alone. So again, we'll see a big surge in Prime membership growth this holiday season. But even outside of the holiday season, they've been signing up just shy of 200,000 new Prime members a month since February. So it's still a very stable game that they're playing. So if we look at those kind of Amazon-only buyers that I just talked about a couple slides ago, it's interesting as we said, 80-some% of people who made a purchase online for those top retailers made at least one purchase from Amazon, and about half of those people, or about 38.5 million Americans, only bought from Amazon. So that means that about 17% of the U.S. online population bought exclusively from Amazon last year. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of profile this audience, like who are these Amazon exclusive shoppers? And so those who bought exclusively from Amazon last holiday season skewed younger. Those 18 to 24 were the most likely to have bought online from Amazon, while those ages 55 and older were actually a little bit less likely than average to buy from Amazon only. Men also had a slight edge over women when it came to Amazon exclusive buyers. In fact, men 18 to 24 were really like the sweet age gender cohort that we were looking at. And that group was about 12% more likely than average to be Amazon exclusive buyers. Interestingly, we didn't really see a huge skew when it came to income or education, with all groups kind of being relatively equal when it comes to that, when it comes to their propensity to being these Amazon exclusive shoppers or buyers. And while, obviously these Amazon exclusive buyers were less likely to have made any purchases from any of the top retailers, they still visited. They still did plenty of shopping around. In fact, if we looked at some of those other retailers, about 40% of them visited Walmart.com between Thanksgiving and the end of December. Over a quarter visited Target and Best Buy, and almost a fifth visited Home Depot and Apple.com. So, obviously people can go and purchase items in those retailers' physical stores, but it does mean that those retailers missed out potentially on an opportunity to convert some of those 38.5 million consumers on their sites during the holiday season. Some other thing we can do in terms of understanding who these Amazon buyers only is looking at their search activity by looking at the things that they're kind of over-indexing for and under-indexing for in their shopping searches. This is where I think you can see again some of the age differences coming out. We see that searches that over-index for this group are gaming laptops, Raspberry Pi, HTC Vive, Apple appointments. So we definitely are seeing more concentration of Apple consumers in the Amazon exclusive audience. Also very heavy into games and kind of technology. They're less likely to be searching for toys and home decor. Again, that's a little bit due to the slight skew that we have for males. Interestingly, this group is actually less likely to search for things like promo codes and coupons for other retailers because they're not buying from anyone else online. They're not even looking for any types of discounts. It's not that they're looking for them and not finding them and finding a better deal on Amazon. They're just not looking in general. So they're just going straight into Amazon to buy and not doing as much comparison shopping. Obviously, this group being Amazon exclusive buyers meant that at least last season, they were less likely to be searching for like the Google Home Mini. They're probably already in the Echo group. So now we'll kind of pivot into looking at kind of mobile trends that we saw last holiday season and then what we're seeing today. Last season, the Hitwise Retail 500 sites received 59% of their online visits from mobile devices. That's about 26% higher than kind of the all industry average. So online retailers are already really ahead of the game. They have been for quite some time when it comes to handling mobile visits, but they're definitely strongly in the mobile dominant territory now. When it comes to transactions, however, we do see the tables flipping back to desktop. The last holiday, we saw 27% of transactions were processed by the top 50 retailers that were done on a mobile device, and 73% were via desktop. So clearly, again, confirming that consumers still do prefer when making a purchase to do so from their computers, but that 27% number is still nothing to shy away from. The mobile share of traffic, interestingly, we saw last holiday season was higher than what we saw in the period immediately following the Christmas season. We saw a pretty clear drop, although relatively only a few percentage points right after Christmas, in fact. And today we're seeing only about 56% of retail traffic for the retail 500 coming from mobile devices, but that's almost going to certainly rebound during the holiday season. One interesting thing when I was looking at the kind of week by week share of mobile activity that was interesting that I didn't really expect was that you saw a clear drop in mobile share the week of Thanksgiving. I was actually expecting to see a boost as more people might have been out shopping physical retail stores. But even as people were out shopping in physical retail stores and using their phones probably more than ever, that wasn't enough to compensate for like the real workhorse activity that people were doing more on their computers during that time to do all their research at home before they left the house and to kind of stay on top of deals and make some of those early purchases online when they could. So, something interesting that we didn't see is that, mobile share drops during the week of Thanksgiving. Shoppers also are clearly continuing to demonstrate that a change in their in-store shopping strategy is evidenced by the growth in these near me searches. In fact, it's been like a 600% increase in near me searches since 2015. And obviously the vast majority of those searches are coming from mobile devices. What's more, near me searches spike during the holiday shopping season. If we can look right here, this is the 2017 shopping season, this is the 2016 holiday season, and this is the 2015 holiday season. So as people are out shopping more near me searches are occurring, and they're looking for other retailers or other services near them. And it's important to understand kind of how you can maximize those near me searches to let people know that that product that they're searching for is in stock in a retail location near them. Some kind of interesting things that we also saw, if we looked at some peak week activity, specifically on key dates like Thanksgiving, we saw that near me searches spiked for grocery stores, liquor stores, dispensaries, fast food, and Waffle House. One other interesting thing that people were searching for on Thanksgiving Day was they were literally looking for anything that's open. The quote unquote word open was used more on Thanksgiving Day, I think, than almost any time during the holiday season. People were just looking to get out of the house and finding some place to go. But over the full holiday season, we saw lots and lots of activity for, just retailers, calling out specific retailers near them: Toys R Us, Burlington Coat Factory, GameStop. They are looking for specific locations and looking for the closest one near them. One place we're seeing mobile playing a bigger role, an even bigger role, I should say, is among the top retailers. In fact, 7 of the top retailers in December were getting more than 60% of their visits from smartphones and tablets, while Amazon and Apple's mobile shares are actually the lowest of the top 10. This is almost certain that this is because of their mobile visits are actually going to the mobile apps now. However, Amazon and Apple are kind of the exception here, as we've seen a lot of other retailers struggle to get significant adoption of their mobile apps, with many consumers they use them for a little bit, but only briefly before eventually deleting them altogether or just preferring to go visit the brand's mobile website. If we look at their mobile shares of transactions among the top 10, we see that the majority of sites weren't far off from that 27% overall. However, Walmart processed 40% of their holiday transactions on mobile browsers, the highest of any of these groups, of any of these sites. And meanwhile, Apple had only 10% of transactions via mobile. Obviously, different price points for items, and they're not going to be bought like on a spur of a moment on a phone. But it is interesting to see how Walmart and also Home Depot, JCPenney also did an outsized share of transactions on mobile devices last year. Interestingly, retailers with the strongest app presence, are those. Interestingly, those as we see these checking in what these transactions rates are, these device rates are for today, we're actually seeing that I think about half of them have actually seen their desktop numbers grow, which seems to be a pretty clear indication, for me at least, that they're making some inroads with their mobile apps. So Walmart, Best Buy, Home Depot, Kohl's, and JCPenney, between Christmas and today, have actually seen their desktop rates increase, which again, to me, is telling me that maybe their mobile share is going down because they're getting more and more people to transact via their mobile app. So they may be getting some stronger footing in getting people to adopt and stick with their mobile apps. So keeping an eye on that during the holiday season. If we were looking at kind of the total number of downloads for the top retail apps during the last holiday season, we obviously see Amazon as the clear winner with about 3 million installs of their app in the month of December. Target, which is the second strongest number of downloads, still had nearly just about half as many installs. So just kind of an interesting thing to keep an eye on in terms of the number of app installs as we kind of head into the holiday season ahead. Now we're going to go into hot products, and we're going to look at a whole bunch of different stuff. And we're going to start off by just understanding where transactions happened on Amazon. So Hitwise is actually able to see all the products that people are buying on Amazon, and we break those down into each of the categories. And during the month of December last year, we can see that the home and garden and tools section accounted for about 20% of all purchases on Amazon. Electronics accounted for about 20%. The Instant Pot was the top item in the home, garden, and tools section last year. In fact, it accounted for about 1% of all of those purchases. Amazon's own products kind of were clearly dominant in the electronics section as well. I think their products accounted for about 4 or 5% of all electronics sold on Amazon, and the Echo alone accounted for the Amazon products accounted for 10% of electronics purchases, and the Echo accounted for 4% all by itself. We look at the audibles and books section. We had Diary of a Wimpy Kid was the top kind of physical book that people were buying last year. And then there was an aromatherapy kind of essential oils vaporizer that was tops in the beauty and health section. Cards Against Humanity was the top toy. And then the Xbox One was the top music and games product. So we can see again where all these products are falling. If we kind of drill down into that home, garden, and tools category though, we can see kitchen and dining was really the biggest one. Again, we talked about the popularity of Instant Pot, and that was definitely part of what was driving that kitchen and dining increase, that disproportionate share for that subcategory within home and kitchen. Home decor, where there was a Himalayan salt lamp that was the top product. In bedding, we saw a lot of pillows. My Pillow is probably the top kind of branded pillow. We saw everything from travel pillows to hyperallergenic pillows. In the kind of heating, cooling, and air quality, we saw some vaporizers, which are obviously a seasonal thing. And then in furniture, we saw a mattress in a box being the top product there. And in fact, we'll talk about the mattress in a box trend in just a minute. Point is, we can drill very deep into all of these categories, and we can see exactly where all these purchases are coming from. Again, Instant Pot was really big, but also were things like the Yeti Cup or Yeti Rambler and some electronic scales and Rubbermaid products. So within each category, there's a lot of different types of products that kind of rise to the top. We're just looking, though, in terms of our traditional hot products search portfolio, which is what we've been tracking for at least about 10 years now. We can see that the Nintendo Switch was the hot product that people were searching for week after week after week throughout the holiday season last year. It was clearly the one to beat. And in fact, if you look at this list, it's clearly dominated by electronics in a way that even we haven't seen to date. We traditionally would see Yankee Candle and some other kind of less technology related products here, but this year is more dominated by electronics than ever before, and we're probably going to continue to see that well into the future. Although one exception to that was fingerlings, which is kind of the only toy to really have made the jump from the top toys to the hot products overall. And it was there for every week of the 6 weeks that we were tracking between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Apple products last year had an exceptionally good year. Normally, we wouldn't see phones in the top 10 during the holiday season. Searches kind of usually decline after the initial release of those products, but last year, the iPhone 10 really maintained its strength throughout the season. And in fact, it's still performing well in our hot product search portfolio. So it's kind of surpassed expectations. The Apple Watch, though, I think was even more impressive, as kind of Fitbit had been our #1 product for years, and it finally kind of dropped not only out of #1, but kind of mid-pack. As Apple Watches, as the more advanced Fitbit get, the more they encroach on smartwatch kind of territory, which is Apple's domain at this point. And obviously they're not winning if they're going head to head against Apple. However, Fitbit is still performing really, really well in our search activity. So they're not going to be going anywhere this holiday season. So it'll be interesting to see kind of the difference between searches for Apple Watch and Fitbit as we head into the season. Next thing, again, as we kind of mentioned before, the Instant Pot was really kind of a huge hit, a big seller this past season. I know we sold hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them during the holiday season. I was actually continued to see it performing so well. And in fact, we kind of saw that first make its appearance during Prime Week last July. And Prime Week, if you're all familiar, is really going to be a great barometer for what items are going to be hot in the years ahead. So as we kind of anxiously await Prime Day this year, we will make sure to report on the top sellers and keep people informed as what's trending heading into the holiday season. I will say that Instant Pots continue to sell and probably will for the foreseeable future. And finally, we kind of have these Google Home and Google Home Mini, which were routinely in the top 10 last year. These were obviously Google's answer to the Echo, and they performed pretty well throughout the season, although Echo, seriously outperformed it. But we'll have an update on Google Home in just a minute here. But the fact is that, we saw tons of activity for Google Home last Christmas, and it's poised to do really well again this Christmas. In fact, Google Home searches now are kind of outnumber those for Amazon Echo, at least when it comes to search engine behaviors. Again, though, a lot of people are going straight to Amazon when it comes to searches for Echo. So if we want to take a look at kind of the Echo versus Google Home wars here, I created quick audiences for each of these by looking at people who either searched for the Amazon Echo or who visited an Echo product page on Amazon, versus people who searched for Google Home or visited a Google Home product page on a number of the top retailers, including Best Buy and Bed Bath & Beyond and Walmart and so forth. You can see, obviously, during the Christmas holiday season, the gap was pretty significant, with over 3.5 million people looking for Echo products in November, 3 million in December, although the gap has actually tightened. In fact, in February, the difference searches, the audience for people looking for Google Homes was only about 70% less, or 70% of what was looking for Amazon Echo. So Google clearly demonstrated the ability to close the gap with Amazon there and the smart speaker market. So we will expect them to continue to do that in the holiday season ahead. And just to kind of let you know, in terms of searches for like Apple's HomePod, I mean, it's a fraction of what we're seeing in terms of searches for Google Home or Alexa. So this really is a kind of a two-horse race at this point. Kind of looking at an update to where we see performance of gaming consoles. Obviously, during the Christmas season, we saw much higher sales for Nintendo Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. We're seeing kind of those three kind of relatively flat for the last few months since the holiday season wrapped up. But we do see Nintendo Switch had been in first place, although PS4 kind of pulled ahead in April, and Xbox One had been kind of running down there in a third place spot. But interestingly, if we look at sales of games for each of these consoles, even though the sales for the platform, the consoles themselves for Nintendo Switch and PS4 were relatively close to one another, we see a lot more purchases for PS4 games than for Nintendo Switch games. So in fact, games are almost always some of the top products during the holiday season, and so PS4 games especially will probably be on our radar this season ahead. But it's just interesting to see that, you know, even the consoles were even or running neck and neck when it comes to the games. They weren't even close. So here's where we kind of make our forecast for what products we think are going to be hot this holiday season ahead. Obviously, I think the real thing to keep an eye on are these smart speakers, Google Home Mini and Amazon Echo. Will we see kind of the screen versions of these two products, if Google's going to announce anything, kind of start to make their inroads this year? Looking at Fitbit versus Apple Watch, these aren't going anywhere at all. These are still going to be hot products. Amazon's Fire Tablet were huge sellers last holiday season, especially during peak week. I expect them to be hot products. Instant Pot, again, you know, even though I think we were selling like several hundred or 100,000 Instant Pot purchases on Amazon last month alone. We'll see how it does during Prime Day, but I don't expect it to disappear from the list. If anything, people who already own Instant Pots might be moving on to the air fryer, which was kind of just below the fold in our hot products for 2017, and it is still performing pretty well today. Looking at the console race, Nintendo Switch is still very, very, very popular, but the top item, in fact, right now in our hot product search portfolio is a PS4 game. And we expect to see lots and lots of PS4 games and other games for other consoles showing up on our list this holiday season. Another thing to keep an eye on is kind of the over-the-top or OTA devices like Roku and antennas. Amazon obviously announced something really interesting recently, where they are going to do a partnership with Best Buy to sell their the television version of their Fire TV with Best Buy. So that will be really interesting to see if people jump from kind of these plugins to actually buying Amazon televisions with Alexa built into them. And then we also saw really strong performances by these DNA test kits, and those kind of did exceptionally well on Black Friday and on Cyber Monday last year, and we expect that race to be only heating up as we head into the holiday season ahead. So these are kind of the products I think that are going to be tops and dominating our list in 2018. The other thing that we hadn't really talked about is, despite all these millions of sales of Echoes and Fire tablets and Fire TVs and Instant Pots, Amazon's bestseller last year were their gift cards, and about 80+% of those gift cards, these are their own gift cards, keep in mind. They sold over 5 million Amazon gift cards in the months of November and December last year, which just keeps more and more activity coming back to Amazon in the months ahead. And 80% of their gift card purchases were in the month of December. Obviously, gift card sales are notoriously late, including on Christmas Day themselves. But Amazon's not only selling their own gift cards, they sold about 120,000 Visa gift cards last year, almost 100,000 Starbucks gift cards, 67,000 Sephora gift cards, 52,000 Ulta gift cards, and 27,000 Olive Garden gift cards. So even if you're not, even if you're not a retailer selling products on Amazon, the people can still buy your gift cards on Amazon. And then I do have another slide in here. I didn't really know where to put it specifically, but it kind of speaks to kind of peak week strategy, and in terms of offering deals and discounts on peak week. Amazon's best sellers on Thanksgiving were their own products. In fact, well, they're always their best sellers, but they sold much better on Thanksgiving, and their sales kind of dropped as peak week moved over, even though Amazon's sales overall increased from Thanksgiving on to Black Friday, with the peak day being on Cyber Monday. So Amazon is going to push their own products first on Thanksgiving and on Black Friday, and as people snatch those up, they're going to start to look deeper and deeper into the Amazon portfolio of products that they offer, and that's when they're going to see greater sales of other things like DNA test kits and Instant Pots and other things. So they're going to be snatching up those Echoes and Fire tablets and Kindles and Fire Sticks and everything in those first few days. And on Thanksgiving was their best day for those products, and then they're going to be looking deeper into the portfolio as we kind of go throughout the long weekend. So just keep that in mind. You're going to be competing considerably more against Amazon's own internal products, Amazon's own products early in that week, with a little bit more less competition as we move out of Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Now, if we look at kind of the toy category, going back to Amazon just to see what people are buying in terms of what categories, this is just knowing the fact that 70% of transactions happen on Amazon. This is a great way to understand what people were shopping for in terms of toys. Games were the top toy category, 19%, and Exploding Kittens was number one. That was also a regular product being offered on Deals of the Day, which definitely helped propel it into number one there. Building toys and craft, really dominated by Lego. And in fact, Lego got about 1.4 million searches. The second best competitor was Mega Bloks, and it had fewer than 100,000. Arts and crafts is really kind of Crayola, Melissa and Doug, and Play-Doh. But interesting, last year's top art and craft product was by neither of those companies. It was by Creativity for Kids, and it was a terrarium, which they promoted through Deals of the Day in November, which really helped. For action figures, it was actually a toy truck, but Funko really dominates this category of action figures. But it's not only Funko. As I mentioned, VTech did pretty well with the top product last year. Again, if we just look at kind of what toys people are searching for, we had three real standout products last year: Fingerlings, Hatchimals, and LOL range of products. Fingerlings and Hatchimals were number one and number two respectively every week of the season, and LOL dolls had these purple dots here that you see were all LOL doll searches, so performing really, really well. Nerf guns still had a place on the list, and Super Nintendo, SNES Classic did very well as well. Perennial favorites like Calico Critters, Easy Bake Oven also did pretty well. Interestingly, I think this is the first year where Lego didn't break into the top 10 once during the holiday season in terms of searches. People weren't really searching for Lego. Then again, it was pretty crowded with those three: Fingerling, Hatchimals, and LOL doll toys. If we want to kind of see where things are going in terms of those top three leaders, Wowie is the Fingerlings brand here. We're looking at their sales on Amazon. We can see that all of them obviously dropped pretty low in January and have been kind of bouncing around between about 8,000 and 40,000 transactions each month, with Hatchimals kind of having a pretty decent jump there in March, primarily due to like Easter basket stuffers. So those small stuffers did really well for the brand. Now we're going to look at kind of what toys we think are going to be hot during the 2018 season. Again, Hatchimals, fingerlings, and Hatchimals and fingerlings, and sorry, what's their brand? And the LOL surprise, I didn't have that image up there for some reason, are continuing to do really well and probably will dominate the list this holiday season, as each of those brands are kind of, making new versions of them. In fact, Fingerlings has a dinosaur version and a unicorn version that they're coming out with. And in fact, just in terms of overall searches for toys, dinosaurs and unicorns are up significantly. So that's a really smart move for them to look for those two types of products. Hatchimals now has their twins products coming out, and LOLs are launching kind of some smaller products because they had been those really giant products, but they're getting into the smaller spaces so they can compete more head on head with Fingerlings and Hatchimals. Squishies, though, interesting, are the #1 search toy product since January, and it has been ever since then. So Squishies will be one to keep our eye on this year. Groot, a character from Guardians of the Galaxy, is increasingly popular and is going to be on our kind of sought after list of characters this holiday season. Funko searches are all on the rise as well, with this Deadpool character that you see on your screen in hot demand. Throwback toys, we always see some of them, kind of those classics, but throwback toys with the technology spin, I think, are going to be popular this year. Teddy Ruxpin actually kind of came in late last holiday season, so we're gonna keep our eye on that one this year. The Tamagotchi pet product is also back in hot demand, and its searches are on the rise. And then there's a new Barbie Dream House. We kind of always see the Dream House kind of somewhere in our search activity each year, but now there's a Barbie smart home Dream House. So again, there's a way for people to integrate kind of lights and other interactive furniture within the new modernized Barbie Dream House. Other trending searches are like Orbeez searches are double since January. Beyblade is up 60%. For Reals up 40%. Magnetic blocks or magnetiles, those are also up. So those have some momentum behind them. And then finally, there's obviously a race to be this season's hot game, like we saw with Pie in the Face a few years ago. Everyone has to have this game. It's kind of a viral media success. Exploding Kittens has been, that regular Black Friday deal on Amazon. It's probably going to still be pretty strong this year ahead. But another game that I'm going to kind of keep my eye on is this Egged On game by Hasbro, because it's also performing pretty well right now. That's kind of our wrap up, and we'll go through some of the top takeaways here before we get to questions. So peak week is still obviously the top week for visits, but that mid-December week, especially that week of free shipping day, is actually the tops for conversions and total numbers of transactions, that consumers really are increasingly motivated to check items off their list, but they obviously want them delivered to their homes in time for Christmas. Search engines, while they're still the top driver of traffic, visits to retailers, they're driving fewer visits to retailers as Amazon becomes a retail search engine of its own right, making understanding the internal searches that are happening on Amazon increasingly important to understand. Amazon's growth continues to surpass beyond expectations, and many consumers are now doing all of their online buying on Amazon. So if you're a brand, you really need to prioritize your relationship with Amazon to avoid getting left out. Keeping a close eye on what's happening on Prime Day. As I mentioned, we are kind of glued to our computers waiting to hear the date of when Prime Day will be this July. And we will obviously be focusing a lot of attention to understanding what's happening on Prime Day. So keep your eyes out for any content that we're sending through in the month or so ahead. And then again, 2018 has the most shopping days between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So start thinking about how you can capitalize on those key shopping days, but also where opportunities exist among the lower but still profitable stretches of days within the season, including those especially towards the end of the season. However, you can, whatever you need to do in order to capture that 14% of transactions that happen in the week before Christmas, you should make sure that you consider that. I think that wraps up, but now we have some questions. Maybe I'll go to Lauren.
Thanks, John. Great insights. For those of you asking, we will be emailing a recording of the deck and the slides to your email within the next day. But for you, John, I do have a few questions here. Someone was asking, do the numbers for Walmart include Sam's Club?
No, Sam's Club and Walmart are tracked separately. So the Walmarts that we were reporting for Walmart are strictly Walmart numbers. Sam's Club's numbers are tracked under Sam's Club, but both are in our retail top 500.
Great, perfect. And then someone asked during the gaming category if GameStop was part of the top 500 panel?
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And I don't know what their numbers are looking like right now. I haven't looked at it in a few months, maybe, but I do know that, you know, in terms of gaming activity on Amazon, it continues to surprise me that almost every week, some of the top product pages and some of the top searches are for games. So people are clearly moving to Amazon as a destination for games and consoles.
Perfect. Moving on to the next one. Someone was asking, did Jet.com fall out of your rankings? I didn't see it.
It is in the rankings. I don't know exactly what number it is. It's definitely still in the top in the top 500, and I'd have to get back to you in terms of where it is in terms of the rank. Okay.
And then towards the beginning of the presentation, someone was asking, what is the significance of 1217? What happened that the conversion rate was so high?
So I think that was really just the culmination of like that free shipping day activity that we saw a clear increase in transactions and conversion rates as we approached that date. Free shipping date was on 12/15 this year, but then we had the weekend after it. So there were probably weekend, behavior is still typically pretty strong now. And so probably we just had people shopping right through the end of what retailers were able to commit to delivering by Christmas. And then after retailers stopped including messages that they were able to guarantee delivery by Christmas, we probably saw transaction conversion rates dropping off.
Okay, perfect. And then probably time for one more question. How are you getting this Amazon data and how far back does it go?
So we're actually able to see all the individual products that people are viewing and purchasing on Amazon.com. The data right now, we've been actually monitoring this back through at least June or so, 2017, but we have kind of data cleaned and compiled back through November 2017. So we've got about 7 months of data under our belt now.
Okay, great. So I believe that's all we have time for today. Just one last reminder that the slides from today's presentation and the recording will be available and sent out by email within the next day. Thank you so much, John.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, everyone.